The end of the first season of The Bad Batch is upon us. After the episode called Finale Part 1 aired today, there is only one episode left in this season. Although it is confirmed that there will be a second season, this season is wrapping things up very nicely. True, it isn't the complete story of the characters, but it is giving us a more insight into the transformation of the Republic to the Empire. And that was mostly what I was excited for in this series. But before I go on, I have this to say about Crosshair. Haha, I told you so. And so this is my review of Chapter 15 of The Bad Batch today on Star Wars Fanatic. If you're a fan of Star Wars and your family and friends are tired of hearing you talk about it, subscribe here and talk about it as much as you want. Turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things Star Wars, and give the like button a high five. Now, I haven't done many reviews of The Bad Batch in the past. Why? Well, because about every other episode was good to me, and the ones between were just so-so. Not that I hated them, they just seemed to move away from what I wanted to see in the story. More of the Imperial transition, more bounty hunters, more explanation of Omega. When this series was announced, we weren't sure if there would be a second season, so it made it seem, if there were only one season, that this was going to be it, and a lot of time was wasted on characters like Sid. I also thought the Ryloth bit was a bit too much. I know it is setting up Hera for Rebels, but was it really necessary? Entertaining? Of course it was entertaining. I just enjoyed the callbacks to Hera and Cham Syndulla a lot, but I thought it slowed the overall story down for what The Bad Batch was. After all, this isn't meant to be a Rebels prequel. Not yet, at least. But criticisms aside, I enjoyed the show very much. The episodes that weren't my favorite were still better than some of the other rubbish I've seen on TV. The episodes I enjoy are more than enough to make up for the others. Now, we are going into the season finale, and to be honest, Finale Part 1 is my favorite episode so far. Yeah, it was nice seeing the return of Scorch and the other Republic commandos, and the appearance of Gregor in the last episode, but like I said, I'm all about this story. I'm glad they showed how Gregor escaped the Empire in the last episode, but maybe they should make a separate show about the clones that made it through, and the traumas endured because of either disobeying Order 66 or executing their Jedi generals and friends. It's just a thought. Anyways, I mentioned earlier about Crosshair, and I told you so. I will get to that in just a little bit. The synopsis of this episode is that Crosshair is setting a trap for the Bad Batch as they try to track down Hunter, who has been captured by the Empire. Clone Force 99 knows it's going to be a trap, and yet they must rescue their captured brother. When they get to the signal from Hunter's comm, it shows he is on Kamino. Omega tells the group of a secret landing platform that Nala Se had. It was so she could conduct secret experiments in her secret lab undetected. When Echo, Tech, Wrecker, and Omega reach the lab, Omega gets a little sad. When asked what was wrong, she told them that this is where she was essentially born. And so were they. She also says she was there when they were created. She then says rescuing Hunter is all that matters now. They devise a plan that involves subverting Crosshair's plans to trap them. When all is said and done, Crosshair was expecting them, and their idea didn't work. Crosshair and his stormtroopers, death troopers, whatever they are at this point, have the group surrounded. However, Omega stayed behind at the urging of the boys. When she got the signal that the rescue went south, instead of going to the ship and contacting Rex, she activated the training droids. The droids caused enough disruption for the clones to retrieve their weapons. When the smoke settled, Crosshair did some trick shooting and took out the stormtroopers of his own unit. He then tries to talk Clone Force 99 into joining him with the Empire. During the conversation, Hunter tries explaining that Crosshair is only acting like this because of his inhibitor chip. Crosshair then tells Hunter that he had it removed long ago. The Empire gets word that Crosshair has been compromised, and Admiral Rampart makes the decision to leave Crosshair on the abandoned Kamino to die with his brothers. And that is when we see the Empire begin the bombardment of the Kamino facilities. ending in their total destruction as the Bad Batch tries to escape with the unconscious Crosshair being carried by Wrecker. Okay, so that's the synopsis. Now I will give my take on the events. Then I will give my speculations and boast a little bit. When the team arrives in the secret lab, it is a touching moment for Omega and the other clones. This is their birthplace. But from what Omega says, she was there when they were created. Now I ask, does she remember that? Because it sounds like she does. That would have put her at least 5 to 6 years old, with her being between 11 and 13 years old in the series. That puts the Bad Batch at 6 to 8 years old. So roughly, physically, between 12 to 16 years old. If they were given the same growth acceleration as the other clones, that is. However, I don't think they were. Instead of a double growth rate, by my estimate, they were given around the triple growth rate of a normal human. So that would put them physically between 18 to 24 years old. But that hypothesis presents a problem. Crosshair is much older than the others. His hair is graying. That means he should have been the first, and it puts him between 35 to 40 years old, physically, of course. Even at triple growth rate, he was created around 12 to 13 years prior, making Crosshair one of the oldest clones. That also makes him older than Omega, or at least around the same age. Omega wouldn't remember Crosshair's creation if that were the case. I even thought, well, maybe Omega is much older than her appearance. I mean, if they can accelerate growth, surely they can slow it as well. But then, we are presuming she is a clone of Jango Fett, and the oldest she could be is around 14 years old, due to the timeline of it all. The Dooku involvement, the Sifo-Dyas negotiations, and the contract. But there is a way Omega could still be older. What if Omega isn't a clone of Jango Fett? In the trials of finding a host for the clone army, Dooku landed on Mandalorians. If you go back to the old expanded universe, it was going to be between Jango Fett and his rival Montrose, both Mandalorians. But what if there was a third that was already being experimented on? What if it was that third person that convinced Dooku that Mandalorian, or rather Fett DNA, was very strong and capable of handling the cloning process? What if that third Mandalorian was Arla Fett? Arla would not have been the only person presumed dead but ended up in Dooku's ring of deception, and it would explain Omega's age. To simplify it, Omega appears to be between 11 to 13 years old, but she claims she was there for the creation of Clone Force 99. Their appearance is between 20 to 40 years old, with Wrecker as the youngest and Crosshair as the oldest. For Omega to have been there and remember them being created, she would now have to be around 25 years old when Crosshair was created. This is about 11 years before the Kaminoans were contracted to create the Grand Army of the Republic. That means she would have been created around 11 years before the Phantom Menace. During the height of the Mandalorian Civil War and around the time of Arla Fett was young, during the time Dooku was having doubts about being in the Jedi Order due to their caring of less populated worlds, namely his own world of Serrano. This is just my theory. I'm probably way off base, and the whole thing hinges on Omega having slowed growth rate and the rest of Clone Force 99 having only double growth rate, like the rest of the clones. If Clone Force 99 is triple the growth rate, then that would put Omega at around 16 years old, which may be more suitable. This also puts her creation only 2 years before the Phantom Menace, and Arla Fett would have been around the age she went missing. Like I said, it's just a theory, and there are a lot of numbers involved. I could be miscalculating, and I won't be disappointed if I'm wrong. But I do hope they explain how Omega was there for the creation of the Brothers of Clone Force 99 when Crosshair is about 40 years old. My next bit is, well, I told you so. I mentioned a while back in a video that I don't think Crosshair was acting under the influence of the inhibitor chip anymore. I mentioned it a few times in other videos. We were led to believe he was, but it seemed like smoke and mirrors to me, to hide a deeper motivation for his actions. And I was right. Crosshair has been operating with the Empire under his own free will for some time. His motivation? His brothers knew there was something not right about his actions, yet they left him with the Empire. The moment we saw him in the barracks in one of the earlier episodes, he seemed to be missing his brothers. But that wasn't the full story. He was questioning how they could leave him there, and his rage was beginning to build at that point. True, I said maybe his chip never activated, so really I was about half right. It's going to be interesting to see how they complete Crosshair's story. Is he going to try to go back to the Empire? I mean, he killed his unit, sans one. The Empire also left him to die. It's going to be tough to convince him that the Empire really did use him. It also looks like Clone Force 99 had become more of a Crosshair project than the Empire. At first, the Empire wanted them destroyed, but in the later episodes, the Empire just seemed more annoyed by them, and Crosshair was the one now obsessed with capturing them. I can't wait to see the season finale. It's going to be bittersweet. But who else got a little choked up when Kamino was being destroyed? I felt the lump in my throat and couldn't help but be sad to see that this signified the true end of the Clone Wars and the clones themselves. When showing the empty mess hall, barracks, and empty birthing tubes, it left me feeling like we won't see many more stories of the Clone Wars, if any at all. Not only signifying the end of the war and the end of the clones in the Star Wars universe, but also an end to their stories. Sure, we'll see Rex and Gregor and other clones, but the era of the Republic will be gone for us. I'm sorry to end this video on a sad note, but what do you think? Will we get more Clone Wars stories? What about my theories on Omega and the ages of the Bad Batch? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you and even debate what I've said. And if you are new here and love Star Wars as much as I do, go on and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so we can continue to discuss how much we love Star Wars. Also, hit the thumbs up and make it light up to show your love for what I do here. It really does help boost my channel. Thank you for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way.